If you're planning a move to Georgia, there are certain homes that you do not need to buy. In today's video, I've got 9 types of homes that I want to warn you about. And I'm not saying don't buy them officially, but I'm giving you the pros and cons of each of these 9 types of situations. And I want to coach you on how to set yourself up for future resale. And that's what this is all about. This is you purchasing a home that's going to grow in value and that you're going to be able to easily sell when it comes time. My name is Kelly Allen. I've been a realtor here for 26 years, so I know what buyers like and I know what buyers don't like. So don't make the mistakes that so many buyers before you have made. Let's get started. All right, first type of home is homes on a septic tank. Now, again, I want to preface all these with, I am not telling you not to buy any of these homes. What I am telling you though, is that each of these characteristics comes with a negative, and it's important to know the negative, know how to negotiate against the negative so that if you do buy these homes, you understand what you're getting into. So we'll start with homes on septic tanks. Now, we don't have a lot of homes on septic tanks in the city of Atlanta, in North Metro Atlanta, where I tend to focus. In fact, only 19% of the homes that sold within a 25-mile radius of Atlanta had septic tanks. Now, what is a septic tank? Well, there are 2 ways to get waste out of your home. The first is more common, and that is the public sewer line. That's a big pipe that takes all the waste from your house to the street and out to the waste treatment plant. The other option is a septic tank, which is a giant box that sits in your typically side or backyard, and the waste goes in there and then it gets dispersed through the drain fields. Now, there are pros and cons to septic tanks. One of the pros is that if you've got a septic tank, you're probably on some land, which honestly, a lot of people really want that. So just know that septic tanks equal bigger lot sizes typically, so that's a good thing. Another pro is that you're not going to be paying city sewer taxes, which can be quite expensive, especially in city of Atlanta. You've got a lot of older pipes in Atlanta. They're going to have to be replaced. That's how they're going to pay for them, by those taxes. Also, another pro is that septic tanks have a very long lifespan. A tank is typically going to last you 30 to 40 years before you have to replace it, sometimes even longer than that. I rarely have to have anybody replace their entire tank. A lot of drain lines and drain fields have to be replaced, but not the actual tank itself. Now, let's talk about the cons that comes with owning a septic tank. Number 1, most people just aren't familiar with septic tanks. Unless you grew up in the country, you're not familiar with it. And as human beings, what we're not familiar with, we typically see in a negative light. So that's number 1. Number 2 is you do have to pump it every 4 to 6 years, depending on how many people live in your home. To pump it, there's an easy way and there's a very difficult way. The easy way is if you have a number of cleanouts that the septic tank company can just basically pop their hose in and disturb a little bit of dirt and they suck everything out. The more intrusive way is if you have to actually dig up the lid of the tank to take off. Boy, I have seen some really pissed off home sellers when my buyers come in and do a septic inspection, and the only way to do a septic inspection is actually to take the lid off or gain access to the inside. Another con is that you really have to watch what you flush. No feminine products, only certain types of toilet paper typically. No wet wipes, anything like that. So you've got to be more conscious of what you flush down the toilet. Bottom line, if you're looking at a home and it's on a septic tank, number 1, you're going to want to get a septic tank inspection, which the seller will have to sign off and give you approval to do because there could cause some disturbance. Number 2, you want to ask for maintenance records. How often has this particular homeowner been pumping out their septic tank and maintaining it? That's really important. If the septic tank hasn't been pumped out in more than 5 years or so, it's going to need it. Number 3, know the location of your septic tank. You'd be surprised at how many sellers don't know where their septic tank is, which also kind of is a clue that they don't maintain it. Know where the septic tank is. If the seller doesn't know, go to the county. Your agent can do this for you, or I would do this for you. We'd go to the county, we'd get the plat map, and hopefully that would show us where the septic tank is and where the drain lines are. Another thing to know too, a home with a septic tank, sometimes that may mean that you cannot put a pool in your backyard without moving the septic tank. So if you're looking at homes and you know that you want to put a pool in the backyard, then make sure that any home that you're looking at that has a septic tank is in a location where you can still do a pool. Okay, the second type of home that you've got to be careful of in Georgia is synthetic stucco homes. There's two types of stucco. There's hard coat stucco, and then there's synthetic or EIFS stucco. Back in the 90s, the stucco that was being built was typically synthetic stucco. The problem with synthetic stucco is that if it's not applied properly, then it can take on water. And sure enough, back in the 90s, a lot of the stucco was not applied properly, and we began having problems with it. Now, only about 10% of the homes around Metro Atlanta are built with synthetic stucco, so this is not an issue that you're going to come across a ton, more than likely. And honestly, a lot of times you won't even know if you're looking at synthetic or hard coat, but the way to find out is to just knock on it. It'll sound and feel hollow if it's synthetic. And if it's hard coat, then it's gonna actually hurt your knuckles. It's gonna feel like you're tapping on concrete. So that's how you really know. In the worst case, you obviously need to verify it. Now, there are some pros to synthetic stucco. It's actually the most energy efficient of all the stucco types. And there are fewer visible cracks with synthetic stucco versus hard coat stucco. You can easily patch synthetic stucco, whereas hard coat is harder. Also, watch out if you're buying a synthetic stucco home that's on a golf course. There are a number of neighborhoods around Metro Atlanta that do have stucco homes on golf courses, and it's always fun to see a golf ball hole in synthetic stucco when a home is on a golf course. So anyway, you just want to be careful of that as well. Third on our list, which actually I think might have been on my first list too, is steep driveway. So I'm sorry if this is repeating, but this is an important one. Okay, so because of the topography in Metro Atlanta, we are at the base of the Appalachian Mountains. We are hilly. So with those hills comes driveways that go up and driveways that go down. Now, there's a couple of issues with these driveways. First, again, it's the stigma with the driveway. If your house is sitting at the bottom of a steep driveway that goes down, many buyers have an assumption that water is going to go shooting straight towards the house, and therefore the house is going to take on water and there's going to be water issues. That may or may not be true, but if you purchase a home like that, you're going to want to make sure that that's not happening so that when you go to sell it, you can prove also that water is going around the property and not straight into the house. Also, people worry about just kind of pulling in and out, the logistics of having a driveway like that, whether it goes up or down. A lot of people worry about, how am I going to get my trash cans to the bottom or the top of the driveway? What about checking my mail every day? Am I going to have to hike down a hill or hike up a hill? So those are just lifestyle issues that can come up. Also, when it gets icy, the twice a year that it gets icy here in Atlanta, getting in or out can prove difficult, although I think it gets you a free day off from work, so there you go. Now, there are some positives to having a steep driveway. I've had several clients who bought at the top of a hill because they love the seclusion that it gave them. They love being able to look out either at a view or look down on their neighbors. So there is some privacy and positivity that can come out of it as well. But I've also had homes linger on the market that are on steep driveways, especially the ones that go down. So just know that, number one, if you're looking at a home with a steep driveway, especially one that goes down, you're going to want to make sure that you really ask the seller, have they had any water intrusion issues? And if they had, how are they fixed, and have they had them at all since then? With a steep driveway, you're going to want to make sure that you get a better deal on it, because you're going to have to pass on that good deal when you go to sell. I've seen as much as a 5 to 7% deduction for steep driveways. So that's either been priced in to the property you're looking at, or it has not been priced in yet because the agent or the seller is not aware of how big of an impact that can have on the home selling. So make sure that you get a good deal on it. Now, another type of home that you're going to want to be really careful about are homes in floodplains or near floodplains. Now that Zillow is showing flood risk data as of September of last year, I think this is fantastic. It's not always accurate, but I think it's a good conversation to have. The first huge flood I remember was back in 2009 in East Cobb, and we got water in our crawl space. Everyone got water in their basements. It was a huge mess. And ever since then, I would say every few years, we have these really big storms that just dump a ton of rain on us at one time. FEMA may redraw the maps every 2 or 3 years. I don't know, but you just have to make sure that you study the FEMA maps to see how close that property is to a risky area. That could change over the years. So knowing how close your property is to a flood risk area is critical. If you're already under contract to purchase a home that is in or close to a floodplain, you want to make sure you check with your homeowner's insurance company to see if flood insurance is going to be required, and if so, how much is it going to be? And ask the seller for a history of water intrusion problems. Typically, if a seller has had water problems, it's stemming from the grade around the house needs to be regraded so that water goes away from the house, or a gutter problem. It's typically not because the property's in a floodplain, but you definitely want to get to the bottom of any previous issues they've had. The fifth home that I really want you to be cautious of buying when you're moving to Georgia is a home on a busy road or at the beginning of a subdivision entrance. Now, homes on a busy road, it probably goes without saying that a lot of people don't want to live there because they worry about their kids or their pets running out into the road, and that is no different in Georgia. However, there are some busy or double yellow line roads. They're inside of subdivisions in the metro Atlanta area. And in that case, traffic's moving a little bit slower. There are usually sidewalks, so it might be okay. Certainly better than if it's a main busy road. So if you're thinking about buying a home and you notice that there are double yellow lines, then you just want to be really cautious and try to get an understanding of how fast the traffic goes on that road, and just really decide if you feel confident and comfortable buying on that road. Same thing with the beginning of a subdivision. So if you're the first or second home into a subdivision, that can also be a negative when you're buying a home in Georgia. And that's because everybody that comes in and goes out are going right past your house. So you're going to get a lot of traffic past your house every day, and you're probably going to get some road noise from the road that the subdivision is off of. Now, the next type of home that you've got to be careful of is a home that backs to a retention pond. Now, a retention pond is often put in subdivisions, and it's a low point in the subdivision, and that's where all the water runoff goes back there. Sometimes they look really pretty. They look like ponds or lakes, and other times they look like sludge fields and overgrown areas with ugly chain link fences around them. So either way, you're going to know if the home has one. The first thing I want you to do is, if you're buying in the summer, I want you to do an aerial view so you can look to see what's behind the home that you're looking at. Second thing I want you to do is just check out the view. If you're buying in the winter, you can see the view because there are no leaves on the trees. You want to see what's behind you. But I will tell you, I actually know of a buyer, not my buyer, but a buyer that purchased a beautiful home with a gorgeous pool in the middle of summer. And the next year, a new subdivision was built right behind their house. They took out all the trees, they put in a retention pond, and they had the ugliest view of concrete and red dirt water that you would not believe. It had a major impact on them selling their house. So again, if you're looking at a home and it backs or it sides to a retention pond, get a better deal on it because you're going to have to pass on a better deal. One of the things that people worry about are mosquitoes, and there's probably a good reason to worry about mosquitoes, but you have lots of stigmas around it. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to deal with mosquitoes. They don't want to deal with snakes, things like that. So get a better deal on that type of lot. The next type of home to be very cautious of is a home. It could be a great home, but it's in a bad neighborhood. And when I say bad neighborhood, I'm talking about a neighborhood that's just not kept up. There might not be covenants and restrictions that protects the neighborhood from homeowners that don't want to cut their grass or don't want to maintain their siding. They don't want to pressure wash, things like that. One bad neighbor is not going to ruin an entire neighborhood, but a neighborhood that's filled with people who don't cut their grass, they're not forced to cut their grass, they don't want to pressure wash, they can paint their house whatever they want or not ever paint their house, that will have a big impact on your home's value. And it's very easy to get lured by the sexiness and the beauty of a gorgeous home and think that you're okay and you can just do this when you drive home and not really care about what's around you. But I promise you, you're going to be driving in and out of this neighborhood every day, multiple times a day. It's going to irritate you when you see your neighbors not maintaining their homes. Okay, my next to last home that I want you to be really careful of, possibly stay away from, is a home with polybutylene plumbing. Now, polybutylene plumbing was used in the 90s around the metro Atlanta area, and it's a plumbing pipe that has been known to leak at the connections. And there are still properties in metro Atlanta that have polybutylene plumbing. Now, here's the deal. a lot of them have not leaked. They may not ever leak, but there is a stigma attached to it, and there could be a negative insurance impact if you buy a home with polybutylene. So how will you know? You won't know. So until you have an inspection. So once you go under contract, have a home inspection, the inspector will be able to identify if the property has polybutylene plumbing or if it doesn't. If it's got poly, then you're gonna want to get a quote to replace the polybutylene in the house, because here's the deal. If you don't get it done, your buyer is going to expect that it gets done. So you might as well go ahead and negotiate it up front and take care of it versus wait until you go to sell. All right, last property that I want to warn you about is a property that's in a flight path. There are multiple airports around Metro Atlanta. Obviously, you've got Hartsfield-Jackson Airport on the south side of the city, but you've got smaller commuter airports around the north side of the city, around Brookhaven in North Metro Atlanta. You want to make sure that your home is not directly underneath a flight path. There's one particular neighborhood in Brookhaven called Drew Valley that is directly under a flight path. And when you're outside trying to enjoy your new home, just wait until the planes start coming and going. You will not believe the noise that's coming from that. Most homes are not going to be in a flight path, but I'm telling you, for the people who have made a mistake and bought in those neighborhoods, they have regretted it very quickly. So that is my list for today. Again, if you haven't watched part 1 of this video, go watch part 1 where I detail the other homes that you need to either stay away from or be very careful if you purchase. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're thinking about making a move to Georgia, you need to call me and get on my schedule, or click in the Calendly link in the description and we can set up a time to put together a strategy so you don't wind up with a home that you regret.